I'm starving today. I'm gonna eat cheese. Just eat one before I start. My stomach is. Hello everyone, welcome back to Angie's Table. If you're new here, my name is Angie. My channel is pretty much about me sharing everything with you, like everything about my life. As my channel name suggests, Angie's Table, my channel is about what I can bring to the table, whether it's experiences like what I'm going through currently, which is infertility, and where I share my experience, but also my knowledge and the things that I learned in my journey. Or another big part of this channel is cooking. So I like to share recipes. And I also like to introduce my Korean American culture into this channel. Family content. I also initially started off with a lot of interior designing, but it's kind of on a halt because initially I did purchase a home, so I was sharing more of that. If I do end up getting pregnant, I plan to introduce that back into this channel because once I have a kid, then I can get started on some DIY plannings for the nursery and the baby shower and all of that. But today we will be talking about the cost and the financial aspect of IUI and IVF. I have shared a good amount of content on the entire journey, and a lot of that was just emotional aspects of infertility. But today I kind of wanted to hopefully help you understand how expensive these treatments can get. If you haven't checked out any of my vlogs, because it's your first video you're tuning into, then I'll share the playlist down below or at the end of the video. So feel free to check that out. Today we are just gonna talk about financial. Okay, enough blabbering, let's dive right in. So I will have my computer out here with me because I have a lot of data that my husband actually compiled for me. Like I kind of had an idea of how much I was spending, but we didn't know for sure. And when I decided that I think people might find this kind of video more helpful, my husband went ahead and he went through all our claims and compiled like an Excel sheet of the costs, and I was shocked in a good way. With that in mind, I do want to let you guys know that all these costs will differ based on your location and your insurance plans. So for me, I am located in the suburbs of Chicago. The clinic that I chose was in a more affluent area in the Chicago suburbs. So that might also have played a role into why it was expensive. But why I said I was shocked in a good way was because I spent a lot less than I thought because of my insurance plan. We have United Healthcare as our insurance provider. I don't know if it's for everyone, but I do think it varies by the state. Even if you have United Healthcare, let's say in some other state, it can be different. But in Illinois, I'm given a $25,000 fertility treatment fund, I can say. So it takes it out of that $25K. And for medications, it was, I'll go back and take a look to see what it was. I don't know why I think it was $10K. Any of this antibiotics or the injection, letrozole, all of that. So because of that, it helped us a lot. And that's why I said I didn't spend as much. I will get into all the details. I feel like I'm gonna be confusing you guys. Let's start with IUI. IUI stands for intrauterine insemination. So it's a less invasive and less expensive alternative to IVF. So basically they take the sperm sample and then they put it right into you on the day of ovulation. And my husband and I did 4 rounds of that. So this is where it gets a little tricky with insurance. As you meet your deductible and as the year goes on, the amount you pay will most likely get smaller and smaller by a little bit because you're paying towards your deductible. For us, IUI cost on average was that we paid $650 per IUI cycle, and that is on average. The first IUI was the most expensive, and then it trickled down from there. So this included all the procedures and everything. So the cost of the meds and the pregnal shot and all the ultrasounds, sit-in visits with the doctor, blood work, and the IUI and the follow-ups, all of that included was about $650 for me. I also wanted to tell you guys how much we paid, but also how much was billed to the insurance. So that is like the total expense made by the clinic. And that was a whopping average of $4,618.23. So if I didn't have insurance and I was paying this out of pocket, or my insurance didn't cover any fertility treatments, then this would have been the price that I had to pay out of pocket, which is insane. It's honestly so expensive, like looking at all the breakdown of how much each thing costs, and it's crazy. I do think like a big part of that is like with the amount of ultrasounds that you have to do. There were times where I, like especially my 4th IUI, my doctor really wanted to make sure, so I did an extra ultrasound and that did cost a lot more. When 4 rounds of IUI didn't work out for us, we decided to move on to IVF, which is a lot more expensive and a lot more invasive. IVF was significantly more expensive for us. You're going to be shocked, but it does have a higher success rate compared to IUI. So for us, my doctor said that our chances would be at a 70% if we did the pgta testing, which is the genetic testing, based on our lab values and our age and all factors included. I felt at that time like a great amount of possibility for us to get pregnant, and I just felt like if I do it, I will get pregnant. That's just how I walked into it, but clearly that did not happen. Okay, let's talk about IVF. My situation is a little different because our embryo arrested at day 3 or 4, where it grew into a blastocyte and then had to get sent to the lab for genetic testing and then therefore on to the transfer. So I completed like, I don't know, maybe 60% of IVF, and then I didn't even get to finish it. So I didn't get to even complete a cycle, and it was this expensive, you guys. If I remember correctly, my doctor said that the insurance, most insurances don't even cover this, so it would have been out of pocket anyways. And it's expensive. IVF gets a little tricky with calculating because everything depends on how many embryos you end up making and how many you want to get tested and all of that. So the more embryos you have, the more expensive it is to get each one tested. I had reached the deductible in the beginning of my IVF cycle. I think it was more on like the end of my IUI cycle. So I knew that going into IVF, we wouldn't have to pay as much out of pocket, and it would most likely be coming out of that $25,000 that I was talking about that my insurance says that they will cover for treatment wise. The total cost of one cycle of IVF, even though I didn't finish it, that we paid out of pocket was $2,784.79. So this also includes everything like doctor consultations, egg retrieval, the surgery part, fertilization, which happens in the lab with the embryologist, all the injections and oral medications that I had to take and get mailed to by a specialty pharmacy. All that included was that price, just under $3,000. So initially when I started IVF, I was very worried about the financial aspect of it. So I looked into funds and grants and things like that that they have for IVF. And there are things like that out there, but you just have to qualify and meet all the requirements to be opted in to apply for the grants and funds. For me, I made my decision in like a month, so I didn't have enough time to figure all that out. But I know that there are payments, plans, and financial options, so I recommend looking into it if you're considering IVF. Are you guys ready for this? I'm gonna tell you guys how much it cost if I was paying this out of pocket and my insurance did not want to cover a penny of my IVF. It would have been $54,937.66. And I didn't even complete the entire IVF cycle because I didn't even get to the transfer portion of it. I was shocked. So this makes me think that if I did get to the transfer, it would have been like $70K even. I mean, with like the surgery and the anesthesia, all of that, I know those costs add up, and that's probably the most expensive part is the egg retrieval portion of it. But I mean, I was shocked. So I spent around $1,500 just on medications like injectables for stimulation and oral meds and antibiotics and all of that. And the rest of it was from the surgery. Fertility treatments can add up to be very expensive, and it's important to be financially prepared before starting. And I completely understand why people say they want to wait before doing another IVF cycle because they want to save money for it, or people literally finish using all their savings on fertility treatments, and this is just extremely expensive, and it makes me sad to think that this is what it costs to become a parent for some people. I also do want to mention that everyone's journey is different. So like I said in the beginning, depending on your location and your insurance plans, these costs can be more or less than what mine were, but I just wanted to give you guys how much everything was for me. Some people are lucky enough to have insurance plans that do cover it. Maybe it's a good option to look into like different jobs and what insurance they have with fertility treatments and all of that before starting. Because I know some people have it where I think their insurance covers the entirety of like your treatments. So I wasn't that case, but I know that I was still lucky enough to have a lot of it covered. I honestly thought I spent more than $5,000 on fertility treatments last year. And I think it felt like that because every time I went into the clinic, I was swiping our card, and it was like $300 something pretty much every single time from what I can remember. Sometimes it was more, sometimes it was less, but on average it was like $30,000. But on average it was like $300. Whoa, that would have been better if it was $30,000. When it comes to this, not that I'm in like a seasoned or experienced person at all of these treatments, because there are people who have gone through way more than I have. Something that I didn't really think about but ended up being a good thing is starting IUI and IVF earlier on in the year. So I was lucky in that sense. I just think it's better to start off earlier so that if you do, in the case, keep wanting to do more cycles, then you would have enough money to get covered like in the latter half of the year possibly. But if you start at the end, you're just paying your deductible and then it resets again in January, which is kind of a waste. So think ahead, and if you do and have in mind of wanting to start IUI or IVF, then try to start with it in the beginning of the year in the case that you want to continue on with fertility treatments in that year. So this journey is extremely hard, not just from the emotional aspect of it, but the financial aspect of it. Make sure to talk to your clinic about what options are available. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I ask questions all the time. I feel like my clinic was very good about addressing like the financial stuff and emotional stuff that came with IVF and IUI. For me, the financial aspect of it was an added stress on top of just the stress of fertility treatments. And I truly went in blindly, not knowing exactly how much it cost. And now I'm shocked looking at the numbers. But in conclusion, IVF and IUI, they're incredible options for those dealing with infertility. If it doesn't work, obviously it's really sad. In my case, it didn't work, nothing worked. But for those who do come out of it with the child, I know all those parents will 100% say it was worth going through all the suffering and everything. They will say that it was worth it at the end of the day. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll see you guys on the next video.